So Silicon Valley Bank was taken over by regulators on Friday. Basically, what happened was there was a bank run. They on last Wednesday they put out an announcement saying they were something like they needed to raise about like $2 billion plus in capital, and what had happened was in 2020 during the pandemic, all these tech companies started to boom, and a lot of VCs and investors started to throw around crazy amounts of money at these crazy companies that had no plans for any sort of revenue whatsoever. Number goes up all the time with these guys, and all this money was being kept basically at this one bank for the most part, Silicon Valley Bank. It's been a trusted bank for the industry for many decades. The reason is because startups open accounts there, the VCs open accounts there. The money very simply goes from one account to another account instead of having to transfer and deal with multiple different banks. And also, this was a very founder-friendly bank as well. They often made stupid loans to founders. I think they gave like Mark Zuckerberg a loan or something for some huge property acquisition, where basically Mark Zuckerberg got a loan for free. They were extremely generous to founders. So anyway, the reason they asked for this, they announced that they needed to raise capital on Wednesday was because they made some stupid investments when they had all this money. Now, when all this money was sitting in their accounts due to the tech boom that came from the pandemic, they decided, holy shit, we have more money on hand than we've ever had before. Let's make that money work for us. So they invested in mortgage-backed assets, treasury bonds, and at the time that was a smart thing to do because it was a good investment. But again, these guys just think all the time number goes up. The same thing sort of happens with crypto, right? They always just assume numbers going up. So what happened was inflation started to happen. The Federal Reserve decided to raise interest rates. This affected the value of those treasury bonds, and they had ended up losing something like 1.85 billion. They were down, I should say, 1.85 billion on their investment, and they decided to cut their losses and sell before they lost anything more. But they still announced that they needed to raise some money due to those losses. These VCs and tech founders see this, and they freak the fuck out. And in all these private channels, they start saying, we got to get our money out of there. So I think in a span of like 24 to 48 hours, something like $46 billion was withdrawn from the bank.
We got a bank run. Old-timey bank run. It's happening right now. Yeah.
Right. So by Friday, regulators had to step in and take over because they were running out of capital. They couldn't make good on those withdrawals. And VCs started to freak out. The people who didn't take both the people who didn't take their money out and VCs who were like supportive of the industry, like David Sachs and Jason Calacanis, to Elon Musk and Peter Thiel associates. And they started going nuts about how, for one, Silicon Valley Bank had a lot of big money accounts, because we're dealing with founders and startups. So a lot of people had a good chunk of change in their accounts. And if you don't know, FDIC insurance states that the first $250,000 in any bank account at any bank is insured. So like you, anyone on this show or watching this show most likely never has to worry about one of our the bank where we keep our money going under, because up to $250,000 of our money is insured. The bank could go under, they could lose the actual money we gave them. Don't worry, the government will step in, and the FDIC insured funds will reimburse us, and we'll get whatever money we lost in that bank back immediately. No problems, no questions asked. A lot of these accounts at this bank had way more than $250,000. I think this bank something ridiculous, like 70 or 80% of the funds at this bank were uninsured. So people were starting to freak out that they weren't going to get their money. Now, these guys really upped the ante with the fear mongering, because it should be said that no one was going to lose like all their money. basically what would happen, worst case scenario, was that people would get that first $250,000 that's insured in full, and then those VCs and those founders and those startups and those small businesses who had more than $250,000, they probably, when all things were said and done, and assets were sold, and the bank was sold out for parts or acquired, they probably would have got back something like, who knows, 80, 90 cents on the dollar. So no one was going to be out everything over $250,000. They may have been out a few, maybe a few thousand, a few 100,000, but we're talking big money accounts here. So these guys that were making it seem like if the government didn't bail out these depositors, then Main Street America was next, and this was going to cause a domino effect where everyone was going to rush to their bank, seeing what happened to Silicon Valley Bank, and they were going to all start pulling out their money, and there was going to be bank run after bank run after bank run, taking out regional banks all across America. Of course, that didn't happen. It was basically only Silicon Valley Bank that was affected here. And of course, though, because this fear-mongering, I'm sure...
there was another bank, too. Didn't the U.S. acquire a secondary bank?
There was two other banks that fell that same week, but not because of Silicon Valley Bank. There was no contagion. It wasn't because of Silicon Valley Bank that these two other banks... It was a domino
effect. The economy didn't collapse.
Yes. Maybe the atmosphere with the atmosphere where people just saw SVB created an atmosphere that made regulators step in when they did for Signature Bank. But there was also another bank, Silvergate, that closed up shop before SVB failed, that had way more in common with Signature Bank than it had in common with Silicon Valley Bank. I'll get to that in a second. But what ended up happening is Biden and the Federal Reserve and the Treasury Department ended up stepping in and saying, okay, you know what? We're going to use these funds that banks have been forced to pool together for these reasons, and we were going to basically make sure all of the depositors get 100% of their money. So VCs got their way. VCs absolutely showed who was boss in this country and who this country truly steps in to help as soon as possible. And it's not the little people, it's venture capital, of course. Because if you think about it, we bailed out the banks in 2008, but we still let Main Street America lose their homes and get foreclosed on. There was no one swooping in to bail out those individuals the same way.
Matt, I hear you, but I heard that this was because the bank was woke. Okay, apparently there was a woman CEO or some shit. Apparently her moon's blood, it synced up with all the other women, and then the bears arrived. No one told us this was going to happen. Okay, it was wokeism. It was woke from the start.
I got a video on that later, by the way. If you want to bring that up,
right? I mean, obviously it's bullshit. All corporate America over the past couple of years has been rolling out diversity initiatives. Obviously, the idea behind that is not bullshit, but these corporations actually rolling out substantial diversity initiatives is bullshit. If you look at the executives at Silicon Valley Bank, all old white men. There was, I think, the person they keep pointing to is the chief risk officer or marketing officer or something like that. Was a woman from India or something, and she was the head of
a diversity hire specifically.
Yeah, bullshit. I mean, give me a break.
It's her fault. This all happened.
This, they could.
Wait, is there a woman? Did a woman do something? Oh, yeah, it's a woman. Definitely a woman did this. Come on,
Lance, you keep saying that word woke.
Uncheck greed.
Lance, you keep saying that word woke. What does that mean to you? Can you define that?
Well, I mean, in this case, it's literally the one Indian woman. I mean, that's exactly what they mean.
I know this one's going to go viral. Okay, I know this one's going to go viral. Thing I don't like. Thing I don't like.
Okay.
I'm going to go with thing I don't like. Thing I don't like. Yeah,
fair.
Thing I don't like. That's woke. At any given time, thing I don't like is woke. That's what woke means.
Yeah. So as for these other two banks, so basically, before, literally a day or two before regulators took over Silicon Valley Bank, a bank called Silvergate shut down, and they actually voluntarily closed up shop because they were trying to avoid a situation like this. They actually have all the funds necessary to make depositors whole. Last time I checked, but what was happening with them is that Silvergate a couple of years ago there was like this regional bank who decided that there's a real opportunity here in becoming the bank for cryptocurrency. And they basically became an institution that pretty much solely served the crypto exchanges, the crypto companies, and lo and behold, it turned out to be a bad bet because all these companies failed. They were having some issues, not just money-wise with their clients, but also regulatory issues, and so they ended up closing a couple days before SVB. And this was known for months that this bank was struggling. Same thing with Signature Bank, the bank that regulators did take over. They announced that right after, like a day or two after SVB was taken over by regulators, and people tried to use that as proof that there was some sort of contagion. No, Signature Bank had way more in common with Silvergate. Signature Bank was another bank that they weren't totally crypto, but they were known for being extremely crypto friendly. They had a lot of crypto clients. And one specific client they had, which I think probably is going to cause them a lot of problems, and why actually the federal government has required that any company that acquires Signature Bank, because Signature Bank is now on the auction block, they cannot serve any crypto clients if they take over Signature Bank. This is part of the auction. The buyer cannot serve crypto clients. And that's because one of Signature Bank's clients was FTX. And Signature Bank was especially crypto friendly because they had what was known as the Signet blockchain. They were running this blockchain that, basically helped these crypto exchanges work more in tandem with the sort of institutional banking that Signature Bank provided. And it's been discovered that through this blockchain, the Signet blockchain run by Signature Bank, FTX was doing a lot of their money moving between the FTX exchange and Alameda Research, their hedge fund. And this money moving is what ended up getting FTX in a lot of trouble, because what FTX was doing was they were sending customer deposits at FTX to their hedge fund, and their hedge fund was then making risky investments with those customer deposits and just fucking losing them because they were being dumb as shit. And they were basically in like the negative. They were losing their customers' money. So Signature Bank is probably in a lot of trouble because this shouldn't have been happening. There should have been red flags warning Signature Bank to this. So either Signature Bank was failing in terms of what they needed to do. There's various different rules around KYC, know your customer, having details of your customer that they either failed to uphold to, or worst case scenario is that they fucking knew that FTX was doing this and was letting them do it, and we're in on it in some way. And this is obviously something that's going to be investigated. It'll come out. But Silvergate and Signature Bank closed for long known reasons, months in the making, that they were struggling because of their crypto friendliness, their crypto clients. SVB closed for a completely separate reason, but I do think it is notable that all three do share that they primarily served the tech industry, whether it was crypto or the risky startup world where the VCs are just throwing money at bullshit startups, like the Uber for public restrooms and the Uber for fucking I don't know, cum factories or some shit. So yeah, that's pretty much the story of what happened. And if you'll see, no other bank has gone under yet. There has been some banks that have had some troubles. I think Credit Suisse or whatever the fuck they're called in Europe has been dealing with some issues. But also, it should be pointed out that on Monday when the stock market opened, all the bank stocks tanked on opening, and people were trying to run with that being proof of a contagion, that this was the beginning of something that was going to spread. And I just want to say straight up, it's fucking bullshit. You can't go. That's what a contagion is. A contagion would mean that the bank run at SVB caused other banks to suffer bank runs, which means that on Monday people were en masse withdrawing their money from banks, just taking money out, fucking over the whole system. That's not what happened. A contagion is not a bunch of investors decided to either try to manipulate the market so they could like short a bunch of stocks, or just they started selling their bank stocks based on feelings and the sentiment in the air. That's not how the economy works. The stock market is not the economy.
What do you think the response from the White House?
How long has this bit been? I'm high, and so again, you know how time moves. So I'm like, I've been unclear. How long have we been in this segment?
There's a lot to talk about here. It was a big story this week. Yeah, it's multifaceted for sure, and it's confusing. Honestly, I mean, it took me a number of tries.
Admittedly, to confirm the suspicions in the comments. No, I don't know what we are talking about. I haven't locked it correct. That's why I'm quiet. But in my defense, I couldn't jump in if I wanted to because if I look up during a Binder segment, I'm not qualified to talk. I have nothing I can add to the conversation. I saw the comments and they were like, Olay question marks, like Olay's gonna, and I looked up, I was like, I should try to tap in, and I heard crypto. I was like, I can't. I have to write it out.
To answer Dave's question, the federal government, the White House should have just let it play out how it's supposed to play out. We all have, you, me, everyone here, if we got very lucky in life and made $250K and put it in a bank, all that money is insured. No matter what happens to the bank we put it in, that money is ours, and the insurance would come back to us. We would have that $250,000 no matter what. We wouldn't lose that. But say we saved up for retirement, and we somehow saved up $300,000-$400,000 for our retirement, put it in a bank account. Our bank went under. Guess what? We would have lost a certain percentage of that extra 50K or extra 100K or extra 150K. No White House would have come out to help us, working retirees who just managed to save up over the years or whatever and put it in a bank account. There would have been no mass run to make sure we were all made whole in the following business day. The system should have played out exactly how it should have. There are a lot of people who know that's how the system works, and they actually, people who have way more than $250,000, and they actually pay attention to this. And I think I forgot that basketball player from Greece. I think he's from Greece, which is why he knows about failing banks. I heard that he took from his money, which is like tens of millions of dollars. He opened like 20 or 30 bank accounts and put $250K in each account. Well, guess what? The way it works is $250K in each account at each bank you have it at is covered. So if you open up, if you have $1 million and you want to make sure it's all FDIC insured, just open up one account at 4 different banks and split it up 4 ways, and you're good.
Why does everyone just do that? That has money. Like that seems like
right.
The argument from founders and startups and business people is that in order to make payroll, some companies have to have more than $250K in their account at a time. But also there are business services that insure more than $250K. You just have to be aware of them, and they probably do cost some sort of fee or money because it's an extra service. It's not like the default that every consumer bank does. So basically, they just need to pay attention and fucking work with a bank that covers this sort of stuff, provides them insurance to cover this sort of stuff.
I just want to point this out as well. Yeah. Since you brought up David Sachs, Ro Khanna is deserving of some criticism here. He has been cheerleading for the bailout, and as an upcoming fundraiser with David Sachs, who has given to, or has been a part, I guess, worked with Peter Thiel, has given to J.D. Vance, has given to Ron DeSantis, and he sees something in Ro Khanna. So it's, I don't know if disappointing is the word, because Ro Khanna has moments where he voted against he voted for the bill that was like something about fear-mongering around socialism. Like he has these weird moments where he plays both sides. He does this on a constant basis. It's just, this is not somebody, I mean, he represents Silicon Valley, understanding where he comes from and what he's, who his audience is. But this is not someone.
It's a huge red flag.
Really trust. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he knows who his constituents are. He serves that whole tech sector. They are his constituents. So, I mean, he's long been in big tech's, in service. I mean, there's a system in place for exactly what happened at SVB, and it should have been let to play out. And if you're, pitying the small businesses or startups that bank with them, again, they wouldn't have lost everything because SVB wasn't completely broke. They just were like a couple $1 billion in the hole, and they were holding on to hundreds of billions of dollars of cash before all those withdrawals came about. But I mean, again, we're talking, you would have got that first $150K, and then you would have had, 80 cents on the dollar for the rest of those millions you have in your account. And that's how the system is meant to work out. If you have a problem with it, I said there's other systems where you get institutions that provide you with more insurance for higher amounts of money. All I know is that this would not have happened if we were affected by it. It just wouldn't. If people like you and me and everyone who watches this show were in that same boat, there would not have been a race to make sure we were whole. I mean, we fucking just a couple of years ago, we fucking shut everything down and gave everybody what, $1,000 every 5 months or something. Yeah, like.
What did you get total as Americans? What did Americans get total? $1,600 each from Trump? Was that it?
I think it was a little bit more.
Yeah, we got $1,200 with the first
Trump
check, and then the second check we got.
It was going to be $2,000, but it ended up being something else. I think it was
right. We got a $600 check from Trump for the second one, and then the I think $1,200.
2,000 total.
Yeah, it wasn't very much. I mean, it was more than any of us I think expected, but it was still shit compared to other countries.
And I should say the argument is that the bailout money for these depositors is not coming from government funds. It's coming from this pool of money that banks have been forced to pay into since 2008 or whatever for scenarios where emergency funds are needed or whatever for situations where a bank would fail or something like that. But they're not. First of all, they're not earmarked for this specific situation as far as I've read. And then second of all, the idea that the banks will just let this money come out of these funds and not look for new ways to replenish those funds via fees to customers like you or I is bullshit. We already know that's where they look to make as much money as possible when something like this happens. Oh, we're going to hit customers with all sorts of fees. Growing up, there was no mandatory minimum. Maybe I'm showing my age here, but there was no mandatory minimum of having to have $100 in your bank account at all times, or you get hit with a fee. It's ridiculous. They're looking for all sorts of new ways to hit people with fees, and it's all because of reasons like this. They make a bad investment. They're required to do something by regulators, and people are like, oh, they're getting punished or they're facing the consequence. No, they're not, because another thing, SVB literally paid out bonuses to their executives days before the regulators took over. These guys always get paid. These guys always make out. These guys always get rewards for destroying the institution that they're in charge of.
Crime every time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But it's wild. It's there's after a certain financial crisis, let's say 2008, should someone be held accountable? Should someone I know there's multiple things happening simultaneously. There's obviously predatory loans that are being taken on by minorities and poor people and stuff like that who are suddenly able to buy a house for the first time, but suddenly they're offered 2 houses. Yeah, probably not a great situation, probably not sustainable. But what about people who are basically taking these, combining them into hey, you should bet on the over-under on whether or not these are all going to default. You should take default mortgages and look at that and be hey, let's gamble on that shit. Shouldn't this be illegal? A lot of it. Shouldn't it be illegal to take out $3.3 million in stock before this happens, right? Like the SVB guy did. He was straight up I'm going to take out a whole bunch of my own money and then just. Oh shit!
Biden said he would hold them accountable. Biden's going to hold them accountable.
Right. I mean, Elizabeth Warren, when Elizabeth Warren went out this weekend, she said it perfectly, honestly. She basically just straight up said, and I think it's the easiest way to understand this. Banking should be boring. These banks should not be making risky investments with our money because, again, that's what they're betting with. Mm-hmm. They're betting with the money that you deposit there. Your money doesn't sit like when you go to a bank, and I think most of our audience probably knows this, but just to reiterate, when you put money in a bank, the actual dollars you put in that bank don't fucking like sit in an account labeled like Matt Binder or David Dole or Ole or Lance. No, they fucking just put a number. Yeah, like the physical money's not sitting there. They fucking put a number, like a computer number, in your account in like a file on their servers, and they fucking take that actual money and pull it all together and make investments with it so they can make money for themselves off of your money. And when they fail and go under, they make sure to serve their executives right away and give them all the bonuses from the leftover money they have. And then they go, oh, well, no money for everybody else. You're all fucked.
And I got a PSA. They will keep doing that as long as they're allowed to, right? Like that's why you need regulation in place. That's why that's the only way to control them. They're not going to be like, oh, okay, we're not going to gamble with your money because we're nice people. Like they're not. If they're allowed to do it, they're going to do it. So you have to put restrictions in place, and all of these. I can show you this video. This is when they did the deregulation in 2018. That at least in some way, according to many, it led to this collapse. But a lot of these Republicans were out talking about how this is a great idea, we should all do this. And then, of course, when the shit hit the fan, the blame is going elsewhere. So, let me bring this up.
While David's loading that up, can I do a PSA for all of you? Take your money out of banks and join credit unions. Find a good credit union in your area. Credit unions are cooperatively owned by all the members of the credit union. Every single year, I get to vote on who runs the credit union that I'm a part of, and also where the money that they use their investments for goes, as in what projects for, stuff like that. It's way more awesome. Take your money out of mainstream banks and join a good, research it first, a good credit union in your area.
Lance fomenting a bank run right here on the show. The people refer to this tomorrow. It's going to be in the news. The collective Leftist Mafia audience took out $10 and a ham sandwich from their combined bank accounts.
Their whole plan to collapse the economy.
President Trump to emerge, he'll be signing legislation that essentially rolls back some of the restrictions of Dodd-Frank.
Not a full dismantle of Dodd-Frank, but a big win for the administration.
There's going to be a lot of rejoicing in Smallville as a result.
I think this benefits the community banks, the regional banks, more than anybody else.
It's a very good decision.
A little rollback indeed. This is good stuff. Take the brakes off and let the money flow once again.
Part of the Dodd-Frank repealed. I mean, this is good stuff.
Regulation is a tool for the incumbent company or business owner to use against the small little guy. And then you saw that at the financial crisis as well with Dodd-Frank. The big banks got bigger. They had no penalty to pay. And the small little local community banks got completely run over.
Is this the Silicon Valley collapse, the beginning of the collapse of the woke economy?
This is really the first bank failure that was caused by adherence to woke beliefs and policies.
A senior vice president of risk management at the bank was heavily focused on LGBTQ plus programs.
Because you want a bank that cares about carbon emissions. And of course, there's endless posturing because it's all free about diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Silicon Valley Bank is a woke Biden bank. They were holding seminars on Lesbian Visibility Day and
Hey, Silicon Valley Bank, is diversity still your strength right now?
It's time to stop with the climate change and all the woke issues instead of focusing on the main mission of the
climate
bank.
change, the woke issue.
These banks focusing on ESG and on all of these sort of woke policies, if you will.
LGBTQ month of activities just before the bank collapse.
Oh my God.
Maybe the executive should have been celebrating LGBTQ week with all that gay sex instead of like
lesbian seminars. Lesbian seminars.
By the way, Fox News has a whole page on equity and inclusivity and like they have a whole page about this. They have a whole page about diversity. Here they are like complaining about that's what took them down. They could say that about any company now that goes down. There's going to be a page about diversity on the site because every company does this. So they could just go, oh, that's why. It's because they were doing diversity. That's why they went down. It's so in your face racist, in your face bigoted. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah. No, it absolutely is. It's absolutely. And who had it? Someone had a really good piece today about the claim that like, all right, here it is. Okay, so from Judd Legum's Popular Information newsletter. One of the things that here, I'll drop it in the so you could pull it up on the screen while I'm reading it. one of the things Fox News has been running with, especially Jesse Waters apparently, is that Silicon Valley Bank donated $74 million to Black Lives Matter. And they're using this as proof that, like, oh, they were just throwing money around and that's why they ran out of money. Granted, I should say that if you have something like $160 billion to work with your bank, $74 million is very, very small. But regardless, Judd Legum did some research into these claims, and it turns out they're not even true. They didn't even donate shit to Black Lives Matter. Basically, the right-wing database that made this claim was put together by the Claremont Institute, which is a right-wing organization, I should say. And they consider donations to BLM to be donations to any organization and initiative that advances one or more aspects of the BLM agenda. So not even Black Lives Matter, actually. 50 million of that 73 million, according to Judd, comes from a pledge the bank made in 2021 on an internal initiative, a program to connect women, Black people, and Latinos with funding, networking, and development in the VC ecosystem. The money was to be spent over 5 years. So again, 50 million of that 73 million they're claiming went to Black Lives Matter actually went to an internal SVB initiative. It went to the bank itself. Second of all,
that's so woke. So woke.
The other amount that Claremont says was BLM related was a donation to support additional COVID-19 relief and establish full ride needs-based at 4 universities. It's just, and then there was an additional $250,000 in donations apparently to the NAACP and ACLU. I mean,
What did they bitch
there's
about?
nothing here.
Oh my lord.